What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Today is Monday, which means Monday Mail Day. I picked some questions. I don't know how long this one's going to be because it's the Andre Ward fight week. So I got some other things to finish up. And let's try to get into it. First question is from Sada El Nigga. Ego, first, thanks for your videos, and I have some questions. Do you think the cancer problem of Leo's father affected him? I mean, maybe he lost a bit of focus because of that. And if he gets a rematch, do you think he'll win? I don't think that Leo's father affected him negatively, because he said before the fight that if his father was not able to make it based on his sickness, that would have affected him and he maybe was going to pull out. But seeing that he had his father he was well enough to be there, that meant a lot for him. So I don't think it affected him. If anything, that would have helped him, because you thought he wasn't going to be able to make it, and then he was able to make it. So having him in his corner, I think Leo Santa Cruz fought with heart, and he fought with like the honor of his father being there, and he wanted to impress. So I don't think it affected him negatively. Plus, you have to understand, Leo Santa Cruz has a big family, and his brother is really sick too. I don't know what he has, like lupus, or he has something disease. So I mean, it's not foreign for the Santa Cruzes to have to endure stuff. I remember watching a little bio about Leo, and he was just talking about how his brother's sick and he wants to fight to get treatment for his brother and stuff like that. So he's real family oriented, and this is not the first time he's had like a major sickness in his family. So in a rematch, I think it would probably be the same, the competitive fight, a gutsy fight, but I would probably pick Frampton, especially if it happens in Ireland like he wanted in Belfast. The crowd advantage, I do think Frampton is just the better overall boxer, and it wasn't really so much what Leo Santa Cruz was doing terrible. Like, it was just a matter of a difference in the skill and the elusiveness, and he was harder to corner. So I think Frampton, that was his first fight, the weight division. You got to take in mind, he went up in weight and did that. So imagine just having that experience at that weight, knowing you could take the punch at that new weight. That'll give him confidence. Him being a champion, that'll give him confidence. So I would probably pick Frampton to win again. Next question is from, who do you got between Ward and Kovalev? I got Ward by unanimous decision. I think Ward will get hit too much. Hashtag new media all day. And then you said Kovalev will get hit too much. I was wrong. So I would pick Ward on a decision too. Better boxer. He has a jab. I don't think Kovalev is I think Kovalev's better at mid to outrange with his boxing. If you're Jean Pascal, you'll get chewed up because he has no defense and he comes to bring the fight. He's like that type of fighter where he's there to be hit. And against Kovalev, that's not good. But Ward, I think he would surprise Kovalev, have kind of a good jab. He can mix it up a bit more. He's a complete fighter, better ring generalship, better movement. Kovalev was bothered by Chilimba's jab, and I think Ward is just very focused. I mean, I've watched the man train. He's very into his craft, very determined, and he's not one of those people that just says, oh, I don't want to let my O go. I don't think he really wants to let it go. Like, he's willing to make the adjustments in fight to get it done. I mean, he was badly hurt in the Darnell Boone fight, got back up and went on to win that fight. So I think his willpower, his style, like coming in on the inside and mugging Kovalev, those aren't good things, especially if you fight Kovalev. Guys like Kovalev, I think is a good boxer, very good boxer with power, but guys that are like considered the bullies with the power, they don't like to be bullied themselves. So if you come at Golovkin or like a Kovalev in that no fear type of fashion with some common sense, if you just fight them like retarded, then you'll probably get slept. But if you have a game plan and they start getting backed up, I don't think they'll like that as much. You know what I mean? Because they're used to people feeling their power, and that's what happens when you go against an experienced guy like a Ward. Is you might find yourself around 6 or 7 backing up, which is what you don't want to do. Just like Victor Postol versus Terence Crawford. Victor Postol's Eastern European style, that works well against Lucas Matisse, Selçuk Aydin, other guys who are more stationary and there to be hit. But what happens when, no matter what, you like, Postol's used to being the counter puncher. That's a similar situation. He's used to being the counter puncher, and now he's being counter punched to death and he's being the chaser. and he's the one that's having to walk forward to try to corner Terrence Crawford, and he's being made to pay every time he does it. So bottom line, fighters don't like fighting a style that they normally wouldn't fight. I think Postal enjoys being the counter puncher, but since Terrence Crawford lulled him into that, then he didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? And I think that's the same thing with like guys like Kovalev and Golovkin. They're great fighters, but I don't think them with the power, they'll enjoy getting backed up for long periods of time, and I don't know how they would respond to that. That's just my 2 cents. Ward via decision. Next question is from Roberto Flores. Now that Crawford unified 140, do you think he'll go to 147 for the big fights? I do think he'll eventually go. I wouldn't suggest that he goes right away. I think this is his 4th fight, the Postal fight, which I covered live. It was only his 4th fight in the division. So I don't know really, I can't think off the top of my head what big names are readily available there. Obviously, if he gets a Pacquiao fight at 40 or 47, that's the person I would jump up for, because Pacquiao, that'll change your career by beating him. You know what I mean? Your whole world is different if he could beat him at 47. And if Pacquiao, who says he's small enough to make 140, if he comes down to 140, then you don't have to move. And again, a win over Pacquiao can change your whole life. So if it's not really going to be Pacquiao, I don't think he has to rush it. He can have a couple title defenses. See, this is the thing. I'm a fair boxing fan. When guys like Mayweather beat Pacquiao and then they fight Berto next, based on Mayweather's schedule of Cotto, Robert Guerrero, Canelo, Maidana twice, Pacquiao, and then he fought Berto, I don't have a problem with that, because Berto's still a 2-time world champion. No one really favored him to beat Floyd, but he's still younger, he's still powerful, still got speed, so it is what it is. Same thing with Crawford. Crawford jumped up in weight. He beat Thomas Delorme, he beat Thierry Jean, he beat Hank Lundy. Then he took on the person who was perceived as the other best person at 140, Victor Postal. So if he has a tune-up style fight, or like a fight where like a Hank Lundy type of opponent, not Hank Lundy particularly, but that style of opponent, I'm not gonna have no problem with that because of his schedule. He's taking on tall orders. He just unified and looked damn good doing it. So that's fair. And you look at it like Tyson Fury or anybody. There's nobody who's just fighting constant killer after killer after killer in every single fight. Tyson Fury fought Steve Cunningham at cruiserweight before he fought Vladimir Klitschko. He didn't just fight Klitschko, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Luis King Kong Ortiz. As much as we would like that for a boxing fan, that's not realistic. So if Crawford, I think there's another guy with the belt, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a foreign fighter, I believe. I would maybe try to go after him, or just see if you can get, I don't know, a Ruslan Provodnikov, Herrera, or the Gomez guy. Anybody like that. I can't think of the 140-pound picture off the top of my head in this video, but maybe stick around for a fight or two like that before you move up. But I don't think there's a rush for him to move up after the Postal fight, unless it's going to be worth his while, like Pacquiao. Next question is from Kid Stacy. Hey, Boxing Eagle, I think Demetrius Andrade is the best fighter at 154. Who do you think is the best fighter in that division? It's hard. There's a lot of killers. I would say Demetrius Andrade, southpaw, tall, experience as an amateur. He fought Lada as an amateur. He fought as a pro, Vanes Matarosen, destroyed Willie Nelson, stuff like that. So I would say from a skill set perspective, it would probably be him. And I just want to see him a bit more active. But there's a lot of threats. Julian Williams, Edeslandi Lada, you got Canelo. I'm not going to say Liam Smith unless he beats Canelo. But a lot of definite champions. I would say as a ready-made, I would say Demetrius Andrade. You look at stylistically what he did with Willie Nelson, a guy who's taller than him with punching power. He just really dominated, knocked down several times, and stopped him in the 12th. That was impressive. I was at the Charlo brother fight with Austin Trout, and I thought the Charlo won and beat Austin Trout, but Austin Trout in recent memory hadn't always looked good post Canelo loss, post Lada loss. Like he was in there with some journeymen, and I think he even got knocked down and stuff, but he gave the Charlo run for his money. You know what I mean? And that was a very competitive fight that went the distance. So I was more impressed with Demetrius Andrade. You know what I mean? I can't even say Canelo because who he's been fighting. Cotto impressed me, but I picked him to beat Cotto based on the size differential. Cotto's not a big dude. And then after that, Khan and Liam Smith. So to me, that doesn't prove you're the best. Bringing up Khan, who got knocked out at 35 and 40. bringing him up to Canelo weight of 155. So yeah, I would definitely say Demetrius Andrade. The fact that he's inactive and then he came back and did that to a Willie Nelson type fighter, I think that's more impressive than fighting a smaller Khan who had durability issues in lighter weight divisions. So yeah, I would agree with Andrade. Next question is from Oscar Martinez. If Andre Ward beats Sergey Kovalev and he faces Adonis Stevenson in the future, do you think Andre Ward's boxing skill and IQ will be enough to beat him? I mean, if he could beat Kovalev, he could beat Stevenson, to me. But I will say this, and some people may disagree, I think Stevenson might actually be a harder fight for Andre Ward than Kovalev. That's just my opinion. Kovalev is a great fighter. He's a good boxer puncher. But I think Stevenson's rhythm and athleticism plus his power, and he's a southpaw, that might be something harder to figure out for a more crafty boxer type, right? Styles make fights. That's what it is. Some people are going to get mad at that, but it's just what it is. Like, you look at Tim Bradley, he fought Juan Manuel Marquez, and I thought he convincingly won fairly easy. He just stayed conscious and that. But he can't figure out the Pacquiao code, and I thought he lost all 3 fights to Pacquiao. Meanwhile, Pacquiao struggles every single time he fights Marquez. Styles make fights, you know what I mean? There's no way to make sense of it. So me personally, based on the styles, I think Adonis Stevenson may actually be a harder fight than Sergey Kovalev. Kovalev's not that fast. He's just a good boxer with a lot of power, right? Very good boxer. But then on the flip side, I would pick Kovalev most likely to beat Adonis Stevenson. So there's no real way to make sense. This is just my opinion, of course. But I think Stevenson may actually be a harder fight based on 2 African-American fighters with those styles and the styles that they do have. And then the fact that he's athletic, because the Thomas Williams Jr., I think Stevenson looked pretty crispy. Kovalev, to me, like I said, he's good. He has a good jab, but he's kind of slow. That's just my personal opinion. Next question is from Marta Zelinska. Yo, Ego, me and my man, kid Stacy, are big fans. Question, which division do you think will be unified first and that we have one undisputed champion? I think light heavyweight is probably the first division that'll happen. Next would be either 140, because you have Terrence Crawford. I don't really see anyone beating him, and he has most of the belts there, or middleweight. But I would say light heavyweight is very close, because I think Kovalev has a lot of the belts. And yeah, he would just have to fight. Ward would have to fight Kovalev, and then the winner of that fights Stevenson. So it's pretty close, but those are the divisions that I see. Middleweight, 140, junior welterweight, and light heavyweight. I think one of them will. I think the belts are a lot more spread out at heavyweight, and I don't know when those fights will happen, like Wilder versus Luis King Kong Ortiz for his interim, or Anthony Joshua versus Wilder. It seems like those fights they're trying to build up. So if I had to guess, those are the divisions that I think have the closest chance of unifying. Next question is from Anthony Haney Jr. 2 questions. I like the Berto versus Garcia fight. I think this is a make or break fight for Berto. What do you think? I agree. I mean, this is like a statement fight. He's already lost to Floyd, got stopped by Jesus Sotocras, has a loss to Guerrero. So some people, and that's why they're bagging on the fight. But stylistically, I think it's a good fight. Garcia doesn't have that much experience at welterweight, even though he's big enough to make welterweight. But see, this is the thing with new media, and this is how I break down people's logic. What people say is inconsistent. They say Danny Garcia is Danny Gift Garcia, but then when it comes to fighting a 2-time world champion, former world champion like Andre Berto with athleticism, speed, and power, who's been in there with Mayweather, they say it's a cherry pick. So to me, all the stuff that they say about Danny Garcia, it doesn't add up, because if you really thought Danny Garcia was Gift Garcia and he's a cherry picker and he's shit, then why is this a horrible fight? Because you don't even really rate Danny Garcia from what you're saying in the comment section. So bottom line, I think stylistically it's a good matchup. Berto would need to look good or win the fight. Obviously, preferably win the fight, because a lot of people are considering him kind of at the tail end of his run, or whatever you want to call it. So if he looks good or if he wins, then that definitely extends it. But it's a good fight stylistically. And I'm not sure who I would pick right off the top. And if Errol Spence wins the next fight by KO, do you think Keith Thurman would look his way or give another well thought out excuse again? Yeah, bottom line to me, Errol Spence Jr., if he knocks out Leonard Bundu, who got hurt by Keith Thurman, but Thurman couldn't figure out how to stop him, then I don't see Thurman rushing to fight Errol Spence Jr. And I don't really see most welterweights fighting. Kell Brook's moving up for a big payday to fight Golovkin. Danny Garcia said, oh, Errol Spence needs to fight this person, that person. Amir Khan, I don't know. He got knocked out by Canelo, so we don't know what his next move is. But I don't see Keith Thurman being in a rush to fight Errol Spence Jr. if he knocks out Leonard Bundu impressively. And the bottom line is, to me, I think Errol Spence Jr. might become a dark horse in the department, in the division, where he's a guy you don't really fight unless you have to fight him. You know what I mean? Like, you look at Guillermo Rigondeaux versus Nonito Donaire. Donaire did the same thing. He made excuses why the Rigondeaux fight shouldn't happen. And when it was all said and done, now you see kind of why those excuses were thought up, because it wasn't what he was saying, like, oh, Rigondeaux is not, he needs to do more, or he's boring. It was because the outcome, he upset the premier fighter, right? So you at least give props to Donaire for taking the fight, but that's what happens a lot of times. People say, oh, Rigondeaux or Errol Spence, they don't deserve it, and then they step up and then they impress and they dazzle and they pull the upset, and then now you understand why all these people were saying that, oh, they don't deserve it, and trying to prolong it. You know what I mean? We interviewed, it was on Dante's Boxing Nation, Chris Algieri, and he said, I don't understand why people are calling him the truth and anointing him this. I've seen a little bit of him, but I really hadn't even heard of Errol Spence Jr. And to me, he kind of downplayed Errol Spence Jr. and made it sound like he's getting unnecessary praise. But then he stepped foot in the ring with him, and he got knocked out. And he got knocked out in a quicker and more devastating fashion than when he fought Pacquiao, when he went the distance but got knocked down 6 times. Then when he fought Ruslan, got knocked down and then won that fight. You know what I'm saying? So everything gets settled in the ring. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter what people say. I just don't see people lining up to fight Errol Spence Jr. unless they have to. Next question is Keith Mathis, one fresh to death. Ego, why do you think Pacquiao always gets a pass when he takes on more easier fights? Nobody's pressing him to fight none of the fighters they want Floyd to fight. I don't know, because I don't think like that. I like Pacquiao. He's a good fighter, but, I mean, he does get a pass. People want to see Floyd fight Sergio Martinez. Martinez called out Floyd and Pacquiao, but you look at the comment sections, and people will say Floyd ducked him. Why isn't it, even if that's your statement, why isn't it Floyd and Pacquiao ducked him? Why is it just all fall on Floyd, right? Sergio Martinez said it himself, I have to fight the perfect fight to fight to fight Mayweather. He said, if I were to fight Mayweather, I have to fight the perfect fight. So it sounded like Martinez had more of a respect. You watch those old videos, it sounded like he had more of a respect for Floyd Mayweather, because I think he said that Floyd would be the harder fight out of him and Floyd, or him and Pacquiao. He believes he would have knocked out Pacquiao, and I do too. In his prime, I think he would have knocked Pacquiao out, right? At the catch weight or whatever, he said he'll fight him at 152, 153, or whatever it was, right? Golovkin. You don't ever hear people say Pacquiao needs to fight Golovkin. Canelo. Even to this day, after Mayweather beat Canelo, a lot of people say, I've made videos about it, when Bob Arum or De La Hoya talked the idea of Canelo facing Pacquiao. What do people say in the comment section? Oh, Pacquiao, he's too small, and let him retire, and all kinds of stuff, because they're scared, because they know Canelo is a big threat because he's no Margarito. He's big like Margarito, but he has faster hands. He's more of a boxer puncher, and he's not going to just be slow and just get chopped down without trying at least. So it is what it is. Double standards run rampant in boxing. I've just learned to accept it, but I still expose it. And then it's like turning on the lights and watching the roaches scatter. There's no argument for it. Even in this comment section, people will probably say, oh, you're full of shit and you love Floyd and hate Pacquiao, but they won't prove me wrong. Like I said, new media. You can dislike, but you can't disprove. Next question from Chemo. Yo, Ego, it's been said a fight between Jamal Charlo and Julian JRoc Williams is signed and set for October or September. It's one of those months, but I'm not 100% sure which one of this year. What do you think of that fight? Great fight. And who would you favorite to win between the two? Laugh out loud. Side thought, I think JRoc's a beast at 154. I agree. I think it's a tough fight. It's a pick'em fight, and it's simply because I've seen JRoc and he looks like an animal. But sometimes people get to that level and then they kind of freeze. They have their biggest step ups and they don't. I don't know if that's JRoc. It doesn't seem like he's built like that. It seems like he's from Philly. So I would probably favor Julian JRoc Williams based on how I've seen and what I've seen and gym stories and what I've heard, his demeanor and his approach. I don't think he would get to that moment and freeze. Met him at the Charlo brother fight. Cool dude. But I don't know. You know what I mean? You never know. JRoc has less experience than Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo's pretty big as well. So I think it'll be a barn burner type of fight. But based on the fact that I think Charlo went the distance with Austin Trout, who I don't know at this point where Austin Trout is at the 154-pound division after some losses. I would say JRoc's probably fresher because I think if JRoc fought Austin Trout, I think he probably would have stopped him. So I'm rocking with Julian Williams at this particular point. But it's a toss-up type of fight, so I wouldn't be mad if someone went the other way either. And that's why PBC's killing and boxing is great, because there's a lot of potential great fights like this. The Amazing Mother Porker, next question. Yo, Ego, good to see your channel grow. Much respect. Here's my question. Thank you for that. Here's my question. Do you think boxing has the same problem as the UFC in regards to PEDs? No. I mean, I think there's more people in the UFC getting busted, especially at a high profile level like John Jones and Brock Lesnar. I mean, Brock Lesnar hadn't fought since 2011 in the UFC. In his first fight back, he tests positive in his first fight. Can you imagine Floyd or Pacquiao being gone out of the sport since 2011, and there's this big hype about them returning, and then the first fight back, they return, and they return with PEDs in their system? So, no, I think the UFC is probably worse. I do think there's cheats in all sports and all fighting sports, and some people just don't get caught. But I think the UFC is probably a bit worse. A lot of these guys are getting caught in out of testing in the UFC, or out of competition testing, right? So who knows what they're doing to pass tests during the fight? You know what I mean? Cycling things in and out. Also, with Mayweather and Pacquiao leaving the scene, can you see any boxing anomalies coming, or is the competition too strong in this era? Hard. That's very hard, because I don't know who to be an anomaly. The times are different in terms of like pay-per-view. I think that's what helped people become anomalies, like Muhammad Ali, the Thrill in Manila, the Mayweathers and Pacquiao's having all this pay-per-view success. So I don't know if we're there now, but I do see a lot of great talent in the fighting game where people could carry the torch for a long time. I really like Vasyl Lomachenko, Oscar Valdez, Terrence Crawford, JRoc. I mean, just some of these guys, it's just too early, because JRoc, if he beats the Charlo, or if he knocked him out or something, then his star power starts growing. Oscar Valdez, if he fights the best person in his division and keeps looking the way he's looking, his stock doesn't grow. Let's say Lomachenko he already beat Gary Russell. Let's say he beats Salido and he beats Nicholas Walters. Then, I mean, this dude is a monster, right? So you don't really know, and it's like you have to do a bit of prophesizing to determine who will be an anomaly, and I don't believe it works like that. I don't think anomalies are like people. Floyd Mayweather's first fight, I believe, was in a used car lot, like a used car dealership car lot, right? In 96 or whatever year it was. At that point, whoever promoted the fight, I think Jeff Mayweather was managing him at the time. I don't think they knew Floyd, oh, this would be the cash cow by 2016. On the Forbes list, he'll be the highest paid athlete. He'll make all this money. People didn't know that. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit too premature, because if anybody knew that Pacquiao would be who he was, that Cotto, that Mayweather, or whoever, if they knew what their stardom would amount to, then everybody would want a part in that. Everybody would put their hands in the cookie jar. So it's a little bit too early to determine who an anomaly is or will be in the fighting sport, but there's a lot of great people that, based on their careers and what happens next, have the potential to do it. Next question is from Avianta Toma. How many jaws does Rigo break when it's all said and done? I don't know, man. Rigondeaux's a monster, and that's why people are making excuses to not fight him. Point blank, period. People are leaving the divisions in order to not have to fight that man. So I don't know how many jaws he has to break to get respect or anything like that, but I know the dude's a monster, and as long as he keeps looking the same and dedicating to the craft, and I always celebrate him and give him until someone shuts him up, until someone beats him. I always give him props. Next question is from Run Triple G Run. If Garcia versus Berto does happen, who would you pick? I normally don't do fight predictions in the Monday Mail Day videos because I'd rather have it more structured in a separate video. I would favor Garcia probably just because he's showed to be a bit fresher. He's still undefeated. He's a good counterpuncher, very good with timing. But I do not believe, and this is how you know who knows their boxing, because a lot of people they're so quick to say, oh, this fight, Berto will get destroyed. He'll get destroyed. He's getting killed. And they do all this screaming, hooting, and hollering, and it never plays out like that. Again, my question to you, new media style, my question to you guys is this. Look at all these major matchups that we've had. Look at Leo Santa Cruz versus Carl Frampton. You look at Mayweather versus Pacquiao, Cotto versus Canelo. You look at all of these fights, right? Porter versus Thurman. And guess what? Even Crawford Postal. But that one's not as much as the other ones, as with what I'm going to say. But the bottom line, you look at all these fights, majority of those fights, there was no knockout. And only one of those fights that I just named, I believe, had several knockdowns, and that was Terrence Crawford versus Victor Postal, right? Cotto, Canelo, Mayweather, Pacquiao, Thurman, Porter, and I said another one. But out of all those three fights, there was no knockdowns. Cotto, Canelo, there was no knockdowns in any of those fights. And if there's no knockdowns, no one got knocked out, right? So that's the point. When you look at stylistic matchups and you read YouTuber comments and people in the forum, they always talk about who's getting destroyed and someone's getting body bag, and it rarely happens like that, right? Where just one person, because at an elite level, you have to do a lot more to destroy a person. Like realistically, like Brandon Rios versus Pacquiao, he got beat, and he got beat bad, but I don't know if you would say he got destroyed. Like, oh, he was just destroyed. I mean, he was still game. He didn't even have an official knockdown. So Garcia Berto, stylistically, I think is a very good fight, and I don't think it's an easy fight based on what Danny Garcia struggled with. I would give him the edge, but I wouldn't be surprised if Berto could pull an upset, maybe even knock down Danny Garcia. That uppercut is vicious. I seen it live in person. And that's what it is. So I would lean towards Garcia based on him having a lot of momentum, still being undefeated, but he's not invincible. And his past fights have showed you that, like where he's been susceptible to certain things. Amir Khan with his speed, Lamont Peterson's athleticism, Zab Judah in those championship rounds, just having heart, southpaw stance, speed, power, and athleticism. Berto has those things, right? Berto, I mean, I could see Berto getting knocked down too. I mean, Victor Ortiz knocked him down. So, Berto can easily get knocked down in that fight too. But I just don't see it's a runaway fight for Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is fighting, if he fights Berto, he's fighting a full welterweight. I've met Berto. He's always in shape. He's more disciplined, right? And that's what it is. When he fought Guerrero, people don't put stuff into perspective. He fought Guerrero off of a 15-month layoff, and he still went the distance. So the man has heart. And from what I know for a fact that, and I'm not making excuses because Guerrero clearly won that fight with Berto, but I do know that Berto at that time, for a fact, through credible sources, that Berto wasn't fully invested in boxing. He was in Miami partying. I think he said he got up to like 189, 190 or something like that, right? So it's no excuse. He did that to himself, if that is true, which I wouldn't doubt it. He was in the 15-month layoff or whatever. And that's what it is. But he still went the distance, and he had Guerrero's eye looking pretty bad as well by the end of the fight. You know what I mean? He fought Soto Caras for multiple rounds with one arm. So and he's been in there with Floyd Mayweather since, and he's been with a new trainer since, with Virgil Hunter. So some things have changed, and me personally, I don't think that's a runaway fight for Danny Garcia where he's just gonna knock him out in one round. It's not a Rod Salka type of fight like people are making it out to be. That's my honest opinion. I think that's a good fight. It's a competitive fight. Even though I have Garcia, I would pick him to win. And that might even change just if they do it all access and I start seeing different things or seeing the physiques and stuff. Garcia is only Berto will be his, third fight? Yeah, third fight at welterweight. So let me know what you guys think. That's just kind of what I think as far as Danny Garcia, Berto. And the final question is Ali Dago 619. Do you think Adonis Stevenson versus Joe Smith Jr. should happen next? Me personally, I wouldn't say that. I would say Joe Smith Jr. needs to grow more. I mean, it's great what he did versus Fonfara, round one, shocker. But a lot of people get gassed off of, like, it's boxing, you know what I mean? Fonfara might have been cold or wasn't ready or whatever, got knocked out, which is good. You can't take nothing away from Joe Smith Jr. But people were saying, like, why did Ward fight Alexander Brand and this and that? At the end of the day, I don't know if Joe Smith Jr. is ready for the elite level, the top three names, the Kovalevs, the Wards, or the Stevensons, based off of that performance. Like, Fonfara, Stevenson already beat Fonfara, right? I mean, if they made the fight, I'll definitely watch it, but I don't think he's ready. I mean, honestly, I don't even know enough about him other than the Fonfara upset. So I don't think people should just get rushed and put him in there with better Biev or some shit based on that performance. Let him grow off that. Let him build his confidence off of that, and that's that. But Adonis Stevenson, how he looked versus Thomas Williams Jr., I think he would personally, he's too much experience. You know what I mean? He's been in there with Darnell Boone, tasted defeat, came back, stopped Darnell Boone. He's been in there with guys like Fonfara himself, Thomas Williams Jr. So I don't think Joe Smith Jr. would have enough experience and enough for Adonis Stevenson at this point. He looked really good versus Thomas Williams Jr. A better fight for me would be Joe Smith Jr. versus Thomas Williams Jr. Now, if Thomas Williams Jr. and Joe Smith Jr. fought each other, that's a good fight. You know what I mean? Williams just lost to Adonis Stevenson, but I think he lost kind of too for a similar reason. Didn't have the experience. He's a bit more wild, and you pick up those things as you grow with the sport and learn on the job. So I think you'll learn from the loss. And I would like to see Thomas Williams Jr. versus Joe Smith Jr. I think that's a better matchup than putting him in there with like one of the kingpins of the light heavyweight division. Let me know what you guys think. Monday Mail Day. Try to get to a lot of questions. Drop in the comment section. Make sure you share the video, like the video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.